welcome to the deep dive. So today we're going to challenge something pretty fundamental.
Yeah, the whole premise of what success even means for an entrepreneur today.
Exactly. I mean, we're all conditioned to celebrate speed, optimization, hyper growth.
Speed, scale, disrupt, that's the mantra, right?
Yeah.
But in certain worlds, especially high luxury, that fail fast mindset can actually, it can destroy the very thing you're selling.
Right. And our sources today point to this incredible, almost countercultural story. We're talking about Domenico Dolce,
The co-founder of Dolce & Gabbana.
who built this empire that's now worth enough to give him a personal fortune of nearly $2.9 billion. And the crazy part, he started in a tiny tailor shop in Sicily.
And that's what's so crucial here and what the sources really unpack. This wasn't built with venture capital or quarterly targets or, any of the modern scaling playbooks. It was built with fabric, with discipline, and with an identity so strong, it became this immense financial power.
Okay, so let's get into this. Our mission here, for you, is to decode this fortune, not as just a fashion story, but as a real challenge to how we think about building a business today. It's a lesson in identity, discipline, and just truly long-term thinking.
Yeah, this deep dive is all about how Dolce's choice to stay, let's say, small in mindset and stubborn in values ended up being his most scalable strategy. It really flies in the face of today's hustle culture.
It's value and mastery over speed and height.
Exactly. His path suggests that maybe, just maybe, the slowest way is actually the most secure.
To really understand that near $2.9 billion figure, you have to go back to the beginning. We're talking Polizzi Generosa, Sicily, 1958.
Which is about as far away from Milan or Wall Street as you can get, not just geographically, but philosophically.
He wasn't raised around abstract finance. Not at all.
And that's the key. That upbringing gave him a totally different money mindset. His father was a tailor, his mother sold fabric.
So every single transaction, every calculation, it was tied to something physical, something real.
You see this idea all over the research. For Dolce, money wasn't a number on a screen. It was, the weight of cloth.
The precision of a stitch.
The hours it took to finish a garment properly. That's where value lived for him. It's such a powerful idea, especially now when so much is digital and, abstract.
Absolutely. That thinking created his foundational rule, basically.
Money is not something you chase. It's something that follows mastery. If you start with that premise, your whole decision-making process changes from day one.
Okay, but for someone listening who's building, say, a software company, how does the weight of cloth translate? Is this just for physical goods?
Not at all. I think it's about optimizing for competence, for reliability, instead of just chasing user growth. The weight of the cloth for software is the clean code.
The intuitive UI.
The commitment to actually solving a problem, even if it takes longer than just pushing out a buggy MVP to hit a deadline. It's about starting with excellence and trusting that the value will follow.
It reframes the entire mission. So instead of asking, how do we maximize revenue this quarter, his question was more like,
is this beautiful enough to last? That's a huge difference in orientation.
Huge.
It meant he was optimizing for what you might call emotional density, not volume. The price tag in luxury, and this is so critical to the fortune, it's justified by meaning, not by utility.
A D&G piece was supposed to make you feel powerful, unforgettable.
Right. You're not buying cotton, you're buying an identity, a story.
You're buying pricing power. That's what economists would call it. Because utility, anyone can copy that. But meaning, that's unique.
And this whole approach, the slow burn focus on excellence, it's perfectly in line with where things are going now. It's slow luxury. High net worth buyers, they want the origin story, the intention behind the product, not just a logo.
He was building for that audience decades before it really became a mainstream idea.
He was. So the secret to the fortune isn't some complex financial trick. It's just the discipline to make excellence non-negotiable and to not treat money as the goal. And that philosophy, that foundation, it led directly to this massive strategic choice when he moved to Milan in 1980. He starts as an apprentice. He meets Stefano Gabbana.
And Milan back then was, it's still ruthless today. The expectation is you work for a big house, you learn the ropes, you assimilate.
But they didn't. In 1982, Dolce and Gabbana do something pretty brave. They open their own tiny design studio.
And the sources are really clear on this. There was no safety net. No investors.
Just personal savings, some family support. It was a really unstable time for them financially.
Taking that kind of risk in the early 80s against all those established giants. It's incredible.
He seemed to understand something deep, this idea that early independence costs money, but late independence costs identity.
Wow. And they chose to struggle on their own terms.
They chose to pay with money, not with their identity. It meant they owned their mistakes, sure, but it also meant they owned their narrative, 100%.
Which in luxury is everything. The story is the product. You lose that the second you take outside money.
Exactly. And the market felt that authenticity almost immediately. The turning point was 1985, Milan Fashion Week, their first women's collection.
The runways at the time were all about this very polished, severe minimalism.
And then D&G comes out with this real women aesthetic. It was so different. It was assertive. It was this Mediterranean sensuality. It was a total shock.
So they weren't trying to blend in at all.
No, they were planting a flag. They positioned themselves as cultural outsiders with a point of view.
And their growth followed that same pattern. It wasn't about expanding into a million categories at once.
It was slow, deliberate, menswear, then accessories, then fragrances. But always with tight creative control, always reinforcing that core identity. They went for depth, not breadth.
It's such a lesson for today. We see all these direct-to-consumer brands that get a ton of VC money, they grow way too fast, and they lose what made them special.
They lose coherence. Dolce's career shows that consistency, that stubborn independence, can be its own form of growth strategy. A quieter one, but one that compounds into massive wealth.
And that's the payoff. Almost 40 years later, D&G is still one of the last major luxury brands privately controlled by its founders. That decision, that independence, feeds directly into that almost $2.9 billion net worth.
Which brings us to how the business actually runs. Because the paradox of Dolce is that he has the net worth of a billionaire, but he has the daily habits of a craftsman.
He doesn't act like a mogul who just sits in an office looking at spreadsheets.
No, he acts like a tailor who just happened to scale his workshop globally. The sources say he is still deeply physically involved in creation.
Obsessing over fabric, weight, silhouette, fit.
And it's not just directing. He's in the fittings, adjusting garments by hand. He's relying on muscle memory that he's built up over decades.
So you might think that's micromanagement, right?
You might, but it's not. It's what the sources call an invisible moat. It means he understands the fundamental inputs of his product better than anyone. And that led to probably the most important strategic decision of all, the absolute commitment to made in Italy.
Which, in the 90s and 2000s, must have sounded like financial suicide. Everyone was outsourcing production to save money.
Everyone. He was consciously choosing to have higher costs and slower output. He was leaving short-term profit on the table.
So was it just about protecting the craft? Or was there a calculated long-term financial reason?
Oh, it was absolutely a calculated financial payoff. It was just disguised as an artistic choice. By keeping production in Italy, he was investing in authenticity.
And fast forward to today.
And made in Italy is a massive trust signal for consumers who are hyper-aware of supply chains and labor practices.
So those higher costs were really a long-term investment in brand equity, an investment his competitors who outsourced could never match.
Exactly right. That insistence on quality created this intangible asset, the invisible moat. It meant every piece was imbued with this story, this quality he could personally guarantee, and that durability is what props up the brand's valuation today.
It takes incredible personal discipline to maintain that.
It does, and his own routine reflects it. For him, creativity comes from structure, from repetition. He keeps the brand coherent by refining the same ideas, not by constantly chasing new trends.
So here's the paradox again. By refusing to chase what's new, he stays recognizable.
And by refusing to let go of control, he ensures the brand will last. That quiet, repetitive, stubborn discipline is what turned a tailor's mindset into billions of dollars.
Let's talk about the philosophy of identity, because this is maybe the most radical lesson for anyone building a brand today. Domenico Dolce never designed for everyone. He never wanted to be universally liked.
He designed to be recognized. Instantly, he completely rejected the idea of being neutral.
He just doubled down on these very specific, very unapologetic themes. His Sicilian roots, Catholic symbolism, this intense Mediterranean sensuality.
He understood, I think, intuitively, that a brand without tension has no memory. Being safe, yeah, it reduces criticism, but it also just erases you. It makes you forgettable.
He allowed the brand to be polarizing.
Yes, because he knew that polarization creates loyalty, deep loyalty. When the rest of the industry went minimalist, he just went even more Baroque, more maximalist.
His internal filter must have been something like, Does this make us more who we are, or does this just make us easier for people to consume?
And you get the sense that anything leaning toward easier to consume was immediately rejected. I mean, if you're trying to stand out today in this algorithm-driven world, that is a blueprint for radical clarity.
He also got the difference between just a commercial face and a true cultural icon.
Oh, completely. He wasn't just paying the most famous celebrity of the moment. He was focused on cultural embedding, turning the clothes into actual social currency.
And the key example's Madonna.
Of course. She wasn't just wearing D&G on a red carpet. She commissioned them to design the costumes for her 1993 Girly Show World Tour. That's deep integration.
You also see with people like Monica Bellucci, who just embodied that specific Italian femininity they were selling.
Right. And what that did was create a kind of pre-digital virality. These icons validated the brand's identity. They signaled authority, status. It was high-impact media before the term influencer even existed.
So he wasn't selling to the masses. He was dressing the people who defined aspiration, and then he just let the culture do the work for him.
Absolutely. His success wasn't about predicting trends. It was about deciding very early on who he was never going to be. And that refusal, that clarity, gave him incredible power. And all of this strategy of independence, it all leads to the final and probably the most financially significant decision of them all.
Resisting the conglomerates.
Resisting the big sale. We all know how the luxury industry consolidated. You have these massive groups, LVMH, Kering.
And they were buying up everyone. Gucci, Sicilian Tailor, Dior. And those deals give the founders a huge immediate payday. It takes all the risk off the table.
And yet Dolce & Gabbana repeatedly said no. They chose to stay independent. And that decision is the absolute linchpin of his personal net worth.
Because staying independent meant they had to absorb every hit themselves.
Every controversy, every market downturn, every bad collection, when they faced public backlash, and they definitely have, they had to weather those storms completely alone.
That sounds incredibly stressful. What does an environment like that force you to prioritize?
Endurance over approval. Their recovery strategy after a crisis wasn't to panic and reinvent themselves. It was always to double down on who they were.
Stand firm on the core identity.
Exactly. Don't smooth the edges to make people happy in the short term. They relied on the loyalty they had built over decades of being clear about who they were.
And financially, staying private must have forced them to be incredibly disciplined. They couldn't just rely on a bigger company's portfolio to cover a bad year.
This is the critical financial point. Staying independent means you keep 100% of the profit, you have full decision authority, and you own all of the brand equity.
So while selling out might give you a bigger valuation in one moment,
staying independent allows you to optimize for decades of cash flow and control. And all of that is what adds up to the nearly $2.9 billion figure. He chose resilience over a quick payout.
So the final lesson here is a bit uncomfortable, especially for a world obsessed with speed.
It is. It's that not every game is meant to be won quickly. Some of the greatest fortunes are built by people willing to stay exposed, stay consistent, and just outlast everyone else.
He didn't survive by adapting to every change. He survived by refusing to abandon himself, the craftsman from Sicily. So, to synthesize this entire deep dive, Domenico Dolce's massive fortune isn't the result of some fancy financial engineering or VC-style scaling. It's really the outcome of a rare kind of discipline, protecting his identity at all costs, one stitch at a time.
He optimized for depth and for meaning, not for speed and scale. And that relentless clarity over time, it turned into trust with his audience. And that trust turned into unshakable pricing power.
Which is the most durable form of wealth you can have.
In any industry.
And the uncomfortable lesson for anyone listening is this. Consistency can feel boring. Sticking to a strong identity is risky. It invites criticism. And craft just takes time.
But Dolce's journey proves that those are the exact qualities that compound quietly, securely, and massively when all the hype dies down and the trends fade away. Long-term success is less about reacting and more about refusing to drift.
At the end of the day, Domenico Dolce chose to become unreplaceable.
Unreplaceable, and I think that's the crucial question for you, the listener, to really think about. Are you building something that scales fast and is maybe, disposable?
Or are you building something that is built so robustly that it's designed to last?
Something to think about. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.